King and kingdoms shall all pass away. There is something about that name. And I'm afraid that too few of us really believe in the efficacy and the sufficiency of that name. With that name, sick folk get well. With that name, troubled folk find peace. With that name, there is a joy that you have never felt, a hope that will never disappoint. There is a faith that will not shrink, a love that will never let you go, a fire that will never go out, a friend that will never leave you, a God that will never fail you, a Christ that will never forsake you, a life that will never end, a power that you will never lose. With that name, and my God, what a name. Jesus Christ of Nazareth, Alpha and Omega, author of salvation, bread of life, bright and morning star, captain of the Lord's host, chosen of God, door of the sheep, first begotten of the dead, first and the last, the good shepherd, glorious Lord, head of the body, heir of all things. I am that I am. Emmanuel, Redeemer, Rock, Root of David, Rose of Sharon, Savior, Son of God, Son of Man, Teacher, True Vine, the way, the truth, the life. There is no name like His name. And so many people are so forgetful that I would like to write it, that name. I wouldn't write it on the sky, because some people never look up and they would fail to behold this beauty. I wouldn't write it on the ground, because the wind might blow trash on it and people would walk over it. I wouldn't write it on the walls of the White House, because only the invited would see it, and the uninvited would never know that He's a honey in the rock, water in the desert, and a bridge over troubled waters. I wouldn't write it on money, because some folks are without jobs. The rich would live and the poor would die. I wouldn't write it on paper, because grandmother didn't go to school and the children are living too fast and too impatient to read it to them. But I tell you what I'd do. I'd rock you to sleep with a spiritual anesthetic and dip my pen in a fountain of blood, that blood that would shed on Calvary, and I'd write it way down in the heart. I'd write it so you could read it in the midnight hour. I'd write it so when you go to court, you could say Jesus, and the judge will say, case dismissed. I'd write it so before you go to surgery, you could read Jesus and know that everything's all right. I'd write it so when enemies get on your trail and folk talk about you, you can read it and know that He will make your enemies your footstool, and no matter what folks say, all is well. Oh, I'd write it. So when tears are streaming down your face, you can read that name and know that he can wipe those tears away. I'd write it. So when you go through something, you will know that you are not alone, for he promised, Lord, I'm with you. I'd write J for justification, E for edification, S for sanctification, U for unification, and S for salvation. I'd write it. Heart fixer, mind regulator, sick folks physician, old folks walking cane, lifeboat in a storm, water in dry places, dying bed maker, a guide across Jordan, superintendent of the resurrection, and host at the great coronation.